Chelsea Football Club were founded in 1905 specifically to fill a stadium, and for 121 years, Stamford Bridge has been their home. But at 40,044 seats, it is now the smallest ground of any traditional Premier League big club, generating tens of millions less in matchday revenue than their closest rivals. The solution should be simple. It isn't. This is the story of English football's most complicated stadium problem. Let's get started. History and context. Stamford Bridge predates Chelsea Football Club by nearly 3 decades. The ground opened in 1877 as an athletics venue for the London Athletic Club, designed by Archibald Leach on a site where thousands of tons of material excavated during the construction of the nearby Underground Railway had been banked into vast terracing. When entrepreneur Gus Mears acquired the lease in 1904, he first offered the ground to neighbors Fulham FC. They declined, so Mears did something unusual. He created a football club to fill the stadium instead. Chelsea Football Club was born on March 10, 1905, and moved in for the start of the 1905-06 season. The ground entered football's elite almost immediately, with a planned capacity approaching 100,000, the second largest in the country. Stamford Bridge hosted FA Cup finals in 1920 and 1922, England internationals, and crowds of 60,000 in Chelsea's earliest seasons. The record attendance of 82,905, set for a Chelsea vs. Arsenal match on October 12, 1935, remains one of the largest ever recorded at an English football ground. However, the club's finances deteriorated badly through the late 1970s, and redevelopment stalled for decades. The most significant modern addition was the East Stand in 1974, still the stadium's architectural anchor today. Then came the Taylor Report. Following the Hillsborough disaster of 1989, all-seater requirements fundamentally reshaped the ground. The Shed End Terrace, the spiritual home of Chelsea's most vocal support for 60 years, was demolished in 1994 and replaced with a seated stand in 1997. Capacity fell sharply and settled in the low 40,000s, where it has remained ever since. Roman Abramovich's 2003 takeover triggered the first serious stadium ambitions of the modern era. Proposals to expand on site were drawn up, a bid for Battersea Power Station failed in 2012, and the club eventually appointed Swiss architects Herzog and de Meuron, responsible for Bayern Munich's Allianz Arena and Beijing's Bird's Nest Stadium, to design a spectacular 60,000-seat rebuild at Stamford Bridge. Planning permission was granted by Hammersmith and Fulham Council in January 2017, with the London mayor's backing following in March that year. The design, a striking cathedral-like structure wrapped in 264 slender brick piers inspired by Gothic architecture and Victorian-era terraces, was widely celebrated as one of the most ambitious stadium proposals in English football history. Then Abramovich's UK visa was not renewed. In May 2018, Chelsea announced the project was on hold due to the unfavorable investment climate. By March 2020, the planning permission expired. One of the most iconic unbuilt stadiums in football history was gone. When Todd Boehly and Clearlake Capital completed their £4.25 billion takeover in May 2022, stadium development was formally written into the deal. Funds were set aside. The question was not whether Chelsea would act, it was how. The problem. Stamford Bridge's limitations are now structural to Chelsea's competitiveness. At 40,044 seats, it ranks 12th among English football stadiums, behind not just Manchester United's 74,000-capacity Old Trafford, Tottenham's 62,850, and Anfield's 61,000, but also Everton's new 52,888-seat Bramley Moore Dock ground. For a club that has won 6 league titles and 2 Champions League trophies, the mismatch between ambition and infrastructure is stark. The financial consequences are measurable. Chelsea generated £86.8 million in matchday revenue in 2024-25, a record for the club, and achieved despite an average attendance of only around 40,000, inflated by an extended European run. Manchester United's matchday income stood at approximately £160 million in the same period, Arsenal's at £154 million. Chelsea's capacity ceiling is suppressing revenue by tens of millions annually against the clubs immediately above them. The stadium also sits in one of the most constrained locations in English football. Surrounded on all sides by residential housing, the District and Piccadilly Underground lines, the main Southern Rail line, and the Fulham Road, there is almost no room to expand without major engineering intervention. And critically, Chelsea do not own Stamford Bridge. The Chelsea Pitch Owners, a trust established in 1993 to protect fans from unwanted relocations, hold the freehold to the land and the legal rights to the name Chelsea Football Club itself. Any major redevelopment or relocation requires approval from over 14,000 CPO shareholders, with a 75% majority required for any vote to pass. When Abramovich attempted to buy out the CPO freehold in 2011 to enable a potential move, he secured just over 60%. It was not enough. The dilemma. Chelsea currently face two viable paths. Neither is straightforward. Option 1. Rebuild Stamford Bridge. The most recent thinking inside the club points toward a full demolition and rebuild of Stamford Bridge on its current site, expanded through the acquisition of the adjacent Sir Oswald Stoll Mansion site, an £80 million purchase from the Stoll charity that was agreed in principle in 2023. Combined with the existing footprint, this would allow Chelsea to construct a stadium of approximately 60,000 seats in SW6, remaining in their historic home. Estimates for this option have ranged from £1.5 billion to £2 billion, with independent experts warning that costs could escalate further given the complexity of the site, building over active railway lines, managing underground infrastructure, and working in one of London's most densely populated residential areas. Independent advisors have warned Bowley that the rebuild could take as long as 7 years to complete, during which time Chelsea would need to relocate. Options reportedly discussed include a ground share with neighbors Fulham at the 27,500 capacity Craven Cottage, which would significantly reduce matchday income during the construction period, as well as Wembley Stadium, where Tottenham played for 2 seasons while their new ground was completed. The CPO vote remains the critical hurdle. While relations between the current Chelsea ownership and the CPO are described as positive, the organization's chair has publicly stated talks are constructive, securing 75% of over 14,000 shareholders for a project of this scale and disruption is far from guaranteed. Option 2. Relocate to Earl's Court. The alternative is a move to Earl's Court, a 44-acre site approximately 1 mile north of Stamford Bridge in the London borough of Hammersmith and Fulham and the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea. Chelsea have engaged with stakeholders around the site, with reports confirming talks with the Mayor of London's office and interest in submitting a formal bid. The appeal is significant. A new stadium on a cleared site could be designed from scratch to modern specifications, with the capacity, hospitality infrastructure, and commercial facilities that Stamford Bridge can never accommodate. The site's scale would also allow for wider commercial and residential development, a model successfully employed by Tottenham Hotspur around their new stadium in North London. However, the Earl's Court Development Company, the organization leading the site's current regeneration plans, has been unambiguous. Its spokesperson has stated there is no plan within their proposals for Chelsea FC to relocate to the site. The ECDC's scheme, which prioritizes thousands of new homes, cultural facilities, and open space, received local authority backing in late 2025, with construction expected to begin in 2026. Chelsea have been warned that delays in submitting a formal bid increase the risk of being excluded entirely, and that if the ECDC's plans advance, securing the land later would cost significantly more than the current estimated site price of around £500 million. Any relocation would also require CPO approval, removing the guarantee of Chelsea's presence at Stamford Bridge, and with it, the naming rights to the club itself. The 2011 vote demonstrated how difficult that threshold is to reach. Timeline and financials. As of mid-2026, Chelsea have made no public announcement on their preferred direction. Bowley has indicated the club has a 15 to 20-year window to resolve the question, though that framing has drawn skepticism from those who point to the urgency of the revenue gap with rivals. Industry observers note that every season of inaction at 40,000 seats costs Chelsea an estimated £30 to £60 million in foregone matchday income relative to what a 60,000-seat venue would generate. The numbers on the rebuild side are sobering. A £2 billion construction cost, plus the £80 million Stoll site acquisition, plus relocation costs across a 7-year build, plus the revenue loss during temporary displacement. The total financial impact of the Stamford Bridge rebuild option could approach £3 billion before a single additional seat is sold. The Earl's Court route carries different costs, land estimated at £500 million, stadium construction at a minimum of £1.5 billion, and the political and legal complexity of securing CPO consent for a permanent departure from SW6. Neither option is cheap, neither is quick, and neither is certain. And that's the full picture of Chelsea's £2 billion stadium dilemma, a club with 6 league titles and 2 Champions Leagues, still playing in a ground they don't own, on a site that may never be big enough, facing a vote that twice already has blocked the way forward. Rebuild or relocate? What should Chelsea do? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, click here to watch our deep dive into the Leeds United Elland Road transformation. See you there in a second.